At the hospital, my father and the doctors were confused, but when I asked them to run some toxicology tests on my father, they understood immediately once the results came back. You see, I realized that my stepmother must have been slowly poisoning my father so that he died slowly, and so that it looked like some unknown illness instead of poisoning. She didn't want me to buy their home so that they could pay my father's medical bills. She wanted the money so that she could leave the country once my father was dead. Hi there, my name is Malcolm, and I came very close to making a huge mistake. So much so that I almost lost someone very close to me as a result. So for starters, let me say that my mother passed away quite a few years ago when I was very young, and my father has tried to date off and on since. At first, he had trouble moving on as he felt that it was betraying the memory of my mother, but after a lot of long talks with me, I helped him to understand that he wasn't. I mean, he deserved to be happy, and I hated seeing him feeling lonely. However, I never would have imagined that one day he would get married to someone like Megan. She was very beautiful and very young. Honestly, in the beginning, Megan seemed like a nice enough person, and when my father first met her, she really did seem like a good fit for him. That is until I started noticing things that made me start to dislike her. It was really simple stuff. My father never really had much of a sense of style. He typically would always just wear a t-shirt and blue jeans. But after he started dating Megan, he began wearing polo shirts and dress pants all the time. Hey Dad, why are you dressed up like you were going to work? You do know that it's Saturday, right? Yeah, I'm just wearing normal clothes. Normal for who? Are you really comfortable in that getup?
He looks fine, Malcolm. This is how a man should dress, not like a slob like he used to. If you ever want to get a wife as well, then I suggest you maybe follow your father's lead.
Her words were very annoying, but the more I paid attention, the more that Megan would say things to my dad and make him change things about himself. It very much felt like she was molding him to be the perfect boyfriend, or at least what she considered to be the perfect boyfriend. At first it was just the way he dressed, but then she started planning out everything that he ate. She emptied the refrigerator and stocked it full of organic foods and nothing processed. And I get it. That isn't really that bad of a thing. My father did eat rather unhealthily, but it was more the level of control that she had over him that worried me. I had tried to get him to stop eating TV dinners with no luck, and after a month of dating Megan, he was eating barely any meat and more vegetables than even I was. So for years it went like that until eventually my father and Megan got married. That wedding was a nightmare. Megan barked orders at everyone, and every decision, no matter how small, had to be okayed with her first. At any rate, shortly after they were married, I met Rita, and I was just grateful that I had found someone that wasn't like Megan. Rita was gorgeous and had such a fun and adventurous personality. We loved spending time together. The only hang-up was that Rita hadn't always been good with her money. When she was younger, she had a tendency to overspend, and as such, she never really gotten herself a place of her own and rented a house with 4 other friends. Meanwhile, I was very frugal, and I had bought a house years ago, and I had very nearly paid it off even. Around that time, I proposed to Rita, and she screamed out in joy, "Yes!" It was a magical occasion, and I was so excited about finally getting married. I went and told my father and Megan the good news, and they both genuinely seemed happy for me. I knew my father would be happy, but for Megan to be happy felt odd somehow. Shortly after I proposed, Rita moved in with me, but then we got some devastating news. My father began to feel ill all the time. He would wake up feeling fine, but at some point in the day, he would begin to feel nauseous and could barely keep any food down. He started to waste away. He had been a bit on the heavy side for all his life, but he could eat so little that he began to drastically lose weight. It was startling to watch, and I felt powerless to help him. I tried to get all kinds of his favorite foods, but he couldn't eat any of them. It was incredibly awkward for me, because I felt so powerless to help my father, while at the same time I was so excited that I was going to be getting married soon. I felt like I was being torn in 2 directions. Then one day, Megan approached me with something that I would never really expect.
Hey, Malcolm, can I talk to you in private?
Sure, of course. What's up?
Well, I just wanted to ask you something. You see, your father needs special medical care and we can't really afford it, while at the same time, you will be getting married soon, and you'll need a bigger home since you and Rita will probably start having kids. That small house of yours isn't big enough for a family.
What are you saying?
Well, I was thinking, why don't you buy our house? That way, we would have the money for your father's medical bills, and you can have a home fit for a family. What do you say?
I guess I'll think about it. But if Dad needs money, I can lend him some to help with his medical bills.
No, we need more than just a small amount of money. Just go and speak with Rita and let us know what you decide.
That night, I went home and spoke with Rita. My stepmother thinks that I should buy their house because mine is too small for a family.
Well, she's right. Plus, it's close to some good schools, too.
Wait, did she talk with you about this?
Well, yes. And I agree that it is a good idea.
You don't think it sounds a bit suspicious?
No, not at all. You're being paranoid.
There was something in the way that Rita was speaking that I suddenly felt paranoid with her words. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was in league with Megan somehow. After all, why hadn't she mentioned that my stepmother had suggested that we buy their home until now? I don't think I'll take her up on the deal. I mean, sure, they'll have money after the sale of the house, but where will they live? I don't think they've really thought this thing through.
Oh, okay, I guess.
That night we went to bed, and in the morning Rita left for work early. Minutes after she left the house, there was a loud crash, and suddenly Rita's car was in our living room. She had driven through the front of the house and had totaled most of the living room and kitchen. What the devil did you do? Are you okay?
Oh, Malcolm, I'm so sorry. I must have gotten a flat tire as I was leaving, and when I tried to back out of our driveway and then drive off, I lost control and slammed into the house.
I'm just glad that you're all right. The house and car can be replaced. You can't. The front two tires of the car were indeed flat, but I was confused as to how she had managed to gain so much speed to damage the house so severely. At any rate, I called the police and made a report of the accident. As I was standing outside, I was approached by one of my neighbors, who looked a bit shaken up. Hey, George, is everything okay? Oh, hey, Malcolm. Listen, I have something to tell you, and it may be nothing, but I just thought I would tell you. What is it, George? Well, I saw Rita pull out of your driveway this morning and then get out of the car and stab both front tires with a knife and then drive the car straight into your house. What? I'm so sorry to give you such awful news, but I thought I would tell you. After all, there is a camera on my doorbell that recorded it as well, and I'm sure the police will ask for the video as part of their investigation, so I figured I would tell you before they asked. I thanked George for telling me and asked him for a copy of the video so I could confront Rita and get some answers from her. Alone inside the upstairs of our house, I showed her the recording and demanded answers from her. What the hell were you doing? It's very clear that you rammed your car into the house on purpose. What possessed you to do it?
It was all your stepmother's idea. She told me that if I figured out a way to destroy this house, that you would have no choice but to buy their house. And I want a bigger house. This place is too small for us to start a family in.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My fiancé had destroyed our home on purpose, and all because my stupid stepmother told her to. I wanted to give Megan a piece of my mind, and so I stormed over to my father's house. They were sitting down to lunch, and my father looked to be in good spirits. A bit worn down, but overall good. Megan, however, looked panicked, like I had walked in on something. Just as I was about to scream at her, my nose picked up an odd scent. Following the smell, I reached for the plate of food in front of my father. It smelled like antifreeze. I almost didn't notice it with all the potpourri that was in the kitchen. I suddenly realized what was happening, and I grabbed my father and dragged him out of the house. I then drove him to the hospital. While on the way, I called the police and reported my stepmother for attempting to kill my father. The police were skeptical, but they brought her in for questioning. At the hospital, my father and the doctors were confused, but when I asked them to run some toxicology tests on my father, they understood immediately once the results came back. You see, I realized that my stepmother must have been slowly poisoning my father so that he died slowly, and so that it looked like some unknown illness instead of poisoning. She didn't want me to buy their home so that they could pay my father's medical bills. She wanted the money so that she could leave the country once my father was dead. Then she would get the money from the house and my father's life insurance as well. Once the doctors confirmed my suspicions, they sent the findings to the police, who arrested Megan and charged her with attempted murder. My father was of course devastated, but also a bit relieved. Sadly, he had been very unhappy with Megan, but had been too much of a coward to say anything or break it off with her. Then when he started to get sick, and she started taking care of him, he felt that he owed it to her to keep doing as she said. It should have been a huge red flag for him when she had him take out a large life insurance policy, but my father just ignored all the warning signs. Shortly afterwards, Megan was sent to prison for her attempts to kill my father. Sadly, she was only sentenced to 10 years in prison, but at least my father divorced her, seeing as how she tried to murder him. The judge let my father keep all the assets and belongings and left Megan with nothing. At least when she got out of prison, she would either be forced to live on the streets or move in with a family member that was dumb enough to give her a chance. As for my father, once Megan was no longer giving him poisoned food, he began to make a full recovery. He has sworn off dating for the rest of his life, and honestly, I can't really blame him. As for me, well, Rita ended up going to prison for destruction of private property. Just like with Megan, she didn't get much prison time. Only a few years, but by the time she's out, I'll have moved on. I drained the mutual bank accounts we had and moved all the money from them to a personal account. Thankfully, my house insurance agreed to pay for the repairs to my home. Unlike my father, I do intend to date again, but I'll be far more picky the next time. I'm just glad that I was able to see through Megan's insidious plan before it really did more damage. Had I bought my father's house, I wouldn't have been able to afford it and would have gone into bankruptcy. A fact that Megan didn't really care about. So all in all, I am pretty sure that both my father and I are in much better places, and while Megan and Rita are stuck behind bars. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.